We are the same, you and I. We are two odd, lonely children reaching for eternity.
Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin. I'm a film critic and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about movies, television, pop culture, that sort of thing. So if you're into any of those subjects and you have to see somebody pick those things apart, you're in the right place and you should consider subscribing. Long time no see, everyone. I apologize for my voice. I am battling my second round of COVID. I'm almost out of the woods, but I'm just fatigued and I sound like this. So that's not the reason for why it's been a long time no see. I'll talk about that more later in the video. But I'm back and I'm reviewing Elvis, the new Elvis movie. Why? Not only do I not like or care about Elvis in any way, shape, or form, I'm on record as hating the entire musical biopic genre.
I think about like Bohemian Rhapsody, which sucks, and it's a terrible movie, and if you like it, I'm sorry, but it fucking sucks.
I know that Kurt Russell did a TV movie about the King that John Carpenter directed, but I have never seen a single solitary scene from it. 16 years ago, Jonathan Rhys-Meyers did a TV miniseries as Elvis and won some awards for that, but likewise, never bothered to watch. There's really only one on-screen Elvis I've ever held any affinity for.
As long as you're not at the scene of the crime, smoking gun in your hand, you get away with it. Clarence, I like you. I always have. Always will.
So what makes this movie different? Like, why is this the first video I'm bringing to you guys in like a month and a half? Baz Luhrmann. You know Baz.
I'm playing on VultureHound UK!
Bombast, opulence, anachronistic music.
Love stupid, I know it. Love stupid, I know.
If anyone in the modern cinematic pantheon was going to be able to make a movie about Elvis that someone like me, would actually find a reason to want to watch, it would be this strange Australian man. When David Ehrlich's Cannes review dropped and massively panned the film, he really just made it sound like something I'd actually enjoy. Name-checking Speed Racer clinched it for me. Now, lately I have not been watching very many movies or enjoying almost any kind of content. I watch wrestling on a near nightly basis, and I watched Better Call Saul before the little like summer break that happened. Those are the only two things I'm really into anymore, and I guess TikTok. I was starting to worry lately that maybe I'm becoming like the movie critic equivalent of a guy who watches too much porn, so now he can only get off to like really, really weird, over-the-top stuff, and I feel like I've become the kind of person who can only enjoy a movie if it seems like maximalist and strange and like too much. But then friend of the channel, Stephen Levins, talked to me about how I'm just in the downward slope of my cycle. I didn't know what that meant. When he said that to me, I was very confused at first. I thought he was like making some kind of joke, but as long as I've known Stephen, roughly 4.5 years, he pointed out to me that I always go through this cycle and that I watch lots of movies, I talk about them, I make videos about them, I tell people about them, I'm very passionate, I'm very like exhaustive, and then I hit a point where I just like stop watching things and don't enjoy them, and I'm just like, it's like I'm completely shut off from feeling anything from fiction of any sort. And then at some point, some random surprising movie snaps me out of it, and then I get back into it. I come alive again, and then like I tend to like just cry a lot at that movie, and then I end up like forcing it upon all my friends, and I won't stop talking about it for like a month, and that's like how you know I'm like out of the downward part of the cycle, according to Steven. If you're curious to see what that looks like, you can watch my review of Hustlers, the J-Lo stripper heist movie, where I am fighting back tears recording from a hotel in Hell's Kitchen. I talked about that movie nonstop to anyone that would listen after I saw it. Incredible movie, still love it to this day. Or more recently, you could check out my review of Free Guy. So going into Elvis, I thought, oh, fuck, like, what if I cry during Elvis? What if Elvis is the movie that gets me out of my slope? What if like I become obsessive about the Elvis biopic and force it down all my friends' throats? Wouldn't that be fucked up? Oh, don't worry, I didn't cry. I'm not obsessed, but I didn't hate it. Thankfully, Elvis isn't exactly the same cradle-to-the-grave biopic Hollywood has become so accustomed to shoving off the assembly line every year. Sure, it hits a lot of the expected plot points, but its non-linear structure, strange pacing, and purposely bloated runtime make it feel like its own beast. Now I'm well aware that there's like 40 million fucking think pieces about why we don't need a movie about Elvis. Namely because he was an arch cultural appropriator, a pedophile, lots of other fucked up shit. I am not disputing that. I don't think we needed a movie about Elvis. I was not clamoring for a movie about Elvis. Like, I wasn't looking forward to this in any way, shape, or form. Like, I could not care less. I have no feelings about Elvis whatsoever. I want to get out of the way that I don't have anything meaningful to add to, like, the discourse around how this is a man who should not be exalted and why is there a movie about him, all that stuff. Like, I don't think there's a way you could make a movie about Elvis that would make people, like, feel like he was properly excoriated, you know what I mean? So, like, I don't have anything to add to that. Like, it's a movie that does try to wrestle with Elvis's place in history as, you know, the swagger jacker of all swagger jackers, but unfortunately it tries to do this by making Elvis a Tarantinian-leveled negrophile who just really digs black culture, man, to the point that he has a bunch of black besties like B.B. King, played by Kelvin Harrison Jr.
Fact of it is, we do not have Elvis without black music.
Right.
We don't have Elvis without black culture.
Right.
His style, I mean, all of that was him going down to Beale Street and going, that guy's the coolest guy I've ever seen. And that's how he picks it up.
Right.
It's pretty fucking tone deaf, to be honest. That bit in the trailer where MLK dies and Colonel Tom Parker is like,
It has nothing to do with us.
It has everything to do with us.
in that scene, he's actually reacting to Bobby Kennedy dying. It's kind of like a weird thing to do in the trailer to make you think it's a movie about Elvis being like a great ally. And as for Elvis's love of underage women and him marrying Priscilla as a teen, the movie kind of ignores the implications of that and sweeps under the rug of, hey, my mom just died. Which, hey, wouldn't be the last time a popular recording artist had some fucked up views on the subject in the wake of losing a matriarch. This does feel like a missed opportunity, given that what makes the movie so special isn't it chronicling Elvis's entire life, but rather boring into the core of the tortured relationship with his handler, Colonel Tom Parker, played by Tom Hanks. On a surface level, their entire business entanglement is basically Mickey Mouse yelling at One Direction on that one South Park episode about Disney selling sex to minors, so given the real-life Elvis's past, this seems like something that should have been unpacked more. But here's my thing about this movie. We can argue that making a movie that made me, a guy who knows nothing about Elvis and never liked him, care about Elvis as a character is, in and of itself, irresponsible and possibly pernicious. It wouldn't even really take that much arguing, honestly. But this movie spoke to me more as a movie about pop music than it is a movie about Elvis's life. Like, it's less a biography of, like, this famous storied man, and more sort of like an uncanny exploration of how pop music, like, as an art, is basically just like a really big con job. Yes, Elvis steals black music, and he uses it to sell sex to teenage girls. And doing so makes him one of the biggest pop cultural figures of the 20th century. But the movie doesn't really have like anything to say about that being a fact. Like, that's who Elvis was. It's much more interested in how he became as famous as he did, and like how that became his own undoing, and how the entire act of like foisting a parasocial figure onto the masses is indistinguishable from committing a crime. Do I wish this wasn't about the real Elvis and was instead Baz going the Velvet Goldmine route, doing his own serial numbers filed off take on the king of rock and roll's mythology? Yes, but no studio is probably going to greenlight that without Elvis, his likeness, and his iconography. And of course, his music for all the soundtrack stuff.
You ain't nothing but a dog player. I get it.
Much of the film is from Elvis's own perspective, and in his world, he's a scrappy guy who turns into his favorite superhero, Captain Marvel Jr., to make people happy and earn enough money to provide for his broke-ass family. But the film is ultimately narrated by Parker, a con man with a fabricated name and history, who uses Elvis as the main instrument at the center of all of his snow jobs. Now, I know like I'm kind of talking about it like it's like this crazy cool thing, but like this is also kind of an unserious movie. Like, Austin Butler, for all his effort, delivers a genuinely impressive turn as Elvis, but at times his drawl morphs from Elvis to Johnny Bravo to Hank Hill. And while a lot of fucked up stuff has been written about Tom Hanks' performance as Parker, I need everyone to understand that this is one of the only times we get to see Hanks play a villain. And inconsistent accent be damned, it's an incredible turn, particularly if you never realized how much you wanted to see Tom Hanks in a fat suit acting like Paul Heyman. It's a blunt, broadly played film, so the performances act accordingly. The scene where Parker first hears Elvis's voice and finds out he's white is literally cut like a bad anime split-screen reaction montage. And as much as the film reminded me of the Wachowski Speed Racer, there's also a fair amount of Ang Lee's Hulk in here to boot, as well as some wild Vegas footage that feels ripped from Michael Bay's drone work in Ambulance. The first hour is immaculate. Like, it is one of the most sumptuous displays of like rock and roll excess and passion and like electricity. Everything about the first hour of the movie is just like boom, 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 boom. It's like so powerful, and kind of powerful isn't the right word, but it definitely has this sense of energy and like momentum that I was like really kind of like taken away with. I was like, whoa, this is like, it kind of feels like just being like grabbed by like a train and just dragged on the side of the train for like an hour. And it's just so pretty to look at. And it's like a silly thing to say like, oh, the cinematography, but like, as my friend Julian put it, this movie's so pretty, it's like Belly for white people. Well, everyone knows that I absolutely hate long movies. This is a movie that feels long on purpose, and maybe I'm giving the filmmakers too much credit, and that's entirely possible. The only point where I started to feel the film's length is roughly an hour and 50 minutes in, and it happens to be this really insane, like, bravura sequence of Elvis's performance the first night of his original Vegas residency. It's this big, over-the-top scene of him like arranging sort of a song that he played once in his youth, like it was like one of his first singles, but with like way more instruments and way more backup singers and all this stuff. And he's just like, it's the beginning of him doing like karate chops on stage and like the over the top gear and the cape and everything, like the iconography of what we know most Elvis impersonators to do. It's like the birth of this thing, and it's just this big chugging monster he's creating. Because he's under the impression that he's building like one big show that he's going to do for like 6 weeks, and he's going to take it on the road and go internationally, go to Japan and Europe, all these places. But as he's performing that on stage, he's singing the song Suspicious Minds. You know, I'm caught in a trap. And while he's singing that, Tom Parker is off stage talking to the guy that runs the hotel, and he's basically negotiating a trap. Like he is locking Elvis into performing at this fucking hotel for like the rest of forever, essentially. Again, it's this very blunt, very broad, not subtle at all scene, him literally playing Suspicious Minds and stuff. Like, I get it.
I know writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards.
It works. It's like so powerful because it builds to this moment of like the curtain finally falls, the show is finally over, Elvis crumples to the ground, he can like barely stand, he's so spent from this one performance. But we, the audience, know this is not a 6-week engagement. We know that he's gonna do this every fucking night until he gets fat and obsessed with weird sandwiches and dies in the fucking toilet. It makes the last 45 minutes of the movie as torturous for you, the viewer, as it is for Elvis, who's just caught in this cycle of touring domestically in the same places and playing in this hotel and just being hopped up on drugs and just being like just decadent and terrible. And the movie kind of shows that like, if you get into this like cycle of like the rock and roll lifestyle, and I mean every biopic kind of does this, that like you doom yourself, but the way it does it in this genuinely tragic way. And again, maybe you're responsible to make Elvis like a tragic figure. Maybe that's not a thing that like someone should have done. But it's fascinating, and I was really taken with it. I was really surprised by how much I was like into it. Some of that is probably Butler's performance. Like I said, like he's a pretty compelling on-screen figure. Some of that is just like how weird the interactions between him and Parker are. Like Hanks is just so slimy and so good. And I was really into all that stuff. I don't know that I can recommend this movie to people, because most of the people that I think watch my videos don't fuck with Elvis, and they don't like long movies. Like everything about it. Like my friend John texted me earlier. He's like, hey, is this good? Is this gonna be worth sitting through 3 hours for? I'm like, for you, no, bro. He's gonna hate it. He's probably in the movie right now as I'm recording this, and I know he hates it. I know he's like miserable. He's probably gonna complain that my shirt's wrinkly. But I really dug it. Like I actually really enjoyed it. It's the most I've liked the musical biopic, maybe, I don't want to say ever, but like in a very long time. It's well made. It's impressive to look at. Like I kind of want to watch it again. I still don't know if I want to sit in a theater for 3 hours for it. It feels like the kind of movie that like I would recommend you to watch at home later whenever it hits VOD, but I also sort of think it's the kind of movie that if you are curious about it, you should just go see it on a matinee or something if you have like a lazy afternoon, because it goes hard on the big screen, like with the sound and everything. Like actually, I think it's, if you're curious only, if you're curious about it, I think it's worth it. But as much as I liked it, I was actually left with like one burning desire that I still can't stop thinking about, and that is for Baz Luhrmann to take over the Hulk Hogan biopic Chris Hemsworth is set to star in from Todd Phillips. Hogan is the closest thing pro wrestling has to an Elvis, a piece of shit who made it big by synthesizing a lot of ideas and techniques from lesser known talents to become one of the most famous people alive. If anyone could make a movie about the Hulkster, like, interesting and compelling and as larger than life as that man's mythology and, like, the history of the WWE and stuff, like, is, it's Baz Luhrmann. And, like, I need it. I need it so bad.
Real bad. So
those are my thoughts about Elvis. Thank you guys for watching. I hope I helped you decide if you're going to see it or not. I imagine you kind of knew what you were going to do regardless of when you clicked on the video, but that's how I feel about the film. It didn't get me out of my I'm still in the downward slope. Like, it didn't wake me up like I was kind of hoping for. Obviously, at this point, I'm not sure what movie will. I'm a little scared, actually. There's another big movie coming up that I'm seeing next week that I'm definitely going to do a video about, I think. So at least it won't be too long between my next upload, hopefully. But yeah, I don't know what it's going to take. I'm not sure what's going to be the thing that gets me, like, back in the game, like, fully, you know. It's probably gonna be something really weird, and hopefully it'll make for, like, a good video and you guys will be entertained. Also, my good friend Dewey brought me this back from Tribeca, Heat 2, a novel by Michael Mann and Meg Gardner. It's like a prequel to Heat, one of the greatest movies ever made. I'm very excited to read it because I'm still sick and I can't go outside, and this is going to be really good for me. Dewey's the best. I've never made a video about a book before, but if you're into that, maybe I will. Tell me in the comments, I guess. We'll see. I don't know. I might not have anything to say about it other than this is rad. That happens. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I missed you guys. Hope everyone's doing well. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, subscribe. There'll be more videos soon, hopefully. And yeah, just take care of yourselves, okay? Be good to yourselves. It's hard sometimes, but it's important. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.